Pryor, you listen to me. I don't care what you do once this thing's over with. You can lay down and die and rot in the street.
For over a decade, Dan Blocker brought warmth and authenticity to one of television's most beloved characters. As Hoss Cartwright on Bonanza, he became more than an actor. He became a cultural institution. Families gathered around their television sets to watch this gentle giant navigate the American frontier with humor, kindness, and an unwavering moral compass. But beneath the carefully crafted image of a television star lay a far more complex and compelling story. Now, decades after his passing, his son has finally come forward to shed light on what the world had long suspected about the man behind the character. Robert Dan Davis Blocker entered the world on December 10, 1928, in DeKalb, Texas, arriving with a tremendous force that foreshadowed the larger-than-life presence he would one day become. Weighing 14 pounds at birth, Dan was immediately set apart from other children. Growing up in a small Texas town, he learned the values of hard work, humility, and genuine human connection. His childhood was unremarkable in many ways. He helped in the family grocery store, worked alongside adults in the fields, and earned the nickname Big Dan from neighbors who marveled at his precocious strength. By the time he reached high school, Dan Blocker had already become a local legend of sorts. Standing 6 feet tall and weighing 200 pounds, he possessed a physicality that could have defined him entirely. Yet those who knew him during these formative years consistently pointed to a quality that transcended his size, an innate gentleness and compassion that seemed almost incongruous with his imposing frame. He excelled athletically, earning a football scholarship to Sulphur Springs State University, where many expected his future to unfold on the gridiron. But Dan had other aspirations. The pivotal moment came during his college years when he was asked to serve as a stagehand for a drama club production. That single request set in motion a chain of events that would eventually transform him into one of television's most enduring icons. When the opportunity arose to take a small acting role in a production of Arsenic and Old Lace, Dan discovered something that football could never offer, a medium through which he could express the depth of his character. He changed his major to theater, abandoning the promise of professional sports to pursue a passion that many considered impractical for a man of his size and background. His dreams led him eastward to New York City, where he pursued roles on Broadway. The competition was fierce and success far from guaranteed. Yet Dan persisted, eventually landing parts in productions of King Lear and other classic works. His determination paid dividends, but his path remained far from certain. The entertainment industry, even in the 1950s, was skeptical about casting a massive man of Texas origins in leading roles. Hollywood seemed to have predetermined notions about where such an actor belonged, if anywhere at all. Before he could fully establish himself in the theatrical world, another calling interrupted his trajectory. The Korean War demanded his service, and in 1951, Dan Blocker traded the Broadway stage for military fatigues. As a member of the 179th Infantry Regiment, he found himself stationed near Chwon, North Korea, facing conditions that tested not just his physical strength, but his moral character. For nearly 7 months, he endured trench warfare, brutal cold, and the constant specter of death. During one particularly intense firefight, he risked his own safety to rescue a wounded comrade, an act of heroism that earned him a Purple Heart. The experience changed him profoundly. He returned home not as a conquered man, but as someone who had witnessed firsthand the devastating cost of conflict. This would become a defining aspect of his character, a deep-seated opposition to unnecessary violence and military interventions. He became an outspoken advocate for peace, particularly critical of the use of napalm and other brutal weapons. The war had given him a perspective that few Americans shared, and he would carry that burden with quiet dignity for the remainder of his life. Upon returning from Korea, Dan Blocker pursued his doctorate at UCLA, where his massive frame and distinctive presence soon caught the attention of Hollywood casting directors. The 1950s were the golden age of television westerns, and producers immediately recognized that Dan possessed the exact qualities they sought: imposing physical presence, a distinctive voice, and an unexpected capacity for warmth and humor. He began accepting bit parts in popular shows like Gunsmoke and Colt .45, gradually building a reputation as a reliable and talented character actor. Throughout the 1950s, he appeared in well-regarded series including The Rifleman, Have Gun Will Travel, and Maverick. Each role, no matter how small, was executed with professionalism and care. By 1957, he had earned his first significant break in The Restless Gun. His performance opened additional doors, leading to a recurring role as Tiny Bonner in Simmons City, which allowed him to showcase his comedic timing and natural charisma. But the role that would define his entire career came in 1959 when he was cast as Hoss Cartwright in a new series called Bonanza. Initially, the show was not expected to become the phenomenon it would become. Television executives were skeptical about a Western family drama centered on widowed patriarch Ben Cartwright and his 3 sons. Yet from its debut, something about the show resonated with audiences. The interplay between the 3 brothers, the intellectual little Joe, the serious Adam, and the good-natured Hoss, created a dynamic that felt authentic and emotionally genuine. As Hoss Cartwright, Dan Blocker became more than an actor playing a role. He became a symbol of integrity, kindness, and moral strength. The character may have been portrayed as simple-minded compared to his brothers, but Dan brought to Hoss an emotional intelligence and authenticity that transcended the script. Hoss became the moral center of the show, the voice of conscience when ethical dilemmas arose. Parents across America were grateful that their children could watch a character who embodied compassion, loyalty, and principled action. This alignment between Dan's actual values and those he portrayed on screen proved crucial to the character's success. He was inspired by the philosophy of John Woolman, an 18th-century Quaker missionary who urged people to do all the good you can. This philosophy infused his portrayal of Hoss with an authenticity that viewers could instinctively recognize. The role demanded that he be not just physically imposing, but emotionally available, a challenge he met with remarkable consistency over 14 seasons. Behind the scenes, Dan forged deep friendships with his co-stars Lorne Greene and Michael Landon. These were not merely professional relationships, but genuine bonds of affection and respect. He served as best man at Landon's wedding, a testament to the depth of their connection. The cast became a true family, and the warmth between them that audiences witnessed on screen was entirely genuine. As Bonanza's ratings soared and Dan Blocker became a household name, he began to grapple with the darker side of celebrity. Despite his immense talent and the genuine affection audiences held for him, fame was something he had never actively sought. His towering presence made anonymity impossible. A simple family vacation could transform into a public spectacle as fans eagerly crowded around him, calling out character names and seeking autographs. The loss of privacy, while perhaps inevitable for a successful actor, weighed heavily on him. In 1970, seeking respite from the relentless attention, Dan and his family made the bold decision to relocate to Switzerland. The decision, while publicly attributed to a desire for a quieter life and better international education for their children, was fundamentally about reclaiming some semblance of normalcy. In Switzerland, Bonanza aired in German, creating a language barrier that granted him a measure of anonymity. The Swiss countryside, with its serene beauty and slower pace of life, offered the refuge he desperately needed. Yet his commitment to Bonanza never wavered. He frequently returned to the United States to film episodes, demonstrating a professional dedication that few actors could match. His willingness to continue the grueling work of television production while maintaining his family's distance from Hollywood's glare represented a remarkable balancing act. Throughout his career, Dan Blocker used his platform to advocate for social justice. When the Bonanza cast traveled to the southern United States during the height of the civil rights movement, they encountered the harsh realities of racial segregation. Upon arrival at one hotel, they were informed that African-American members of their crew would not be permitted to stay due to the establishment's discriminatory policies. Without hesitation, Dan Blocker announced that the entire cast and crew would find accommodations elsewhere. His quiet determination made clear that his sense of fairness was not merely performative, but deeply rooted in his character. In interviews, he spoke candidly about his hatred for bullying and oppression. He understood that his size and strength carried responsibility, and he was determined to use those advantages to protect rather than intimidate. This commitment to justice, this refusal to accept the status quo, demonstrated that the kindness audiences witnessed in Haas Cartwright was not theatrical artifice, but an authentic expression of Dan Blocker's character. For all his strengths, Dan Blocker was not without struggles. His legendary appetite became both a source of amusement and, increasingly, a health concern. He began each day with a dozen eggs, 2 loaves of bread, and bottles of milk. Throughout the day, he consumed enormous quantities of meat, potatoes, and bread. His affection for food reflected his Texas roots and his genuine love of life's simple pleasures. Yet it also created physical challenges. He became a co-owner of the Ponderosa Steakhouse chain, a business venture that perfectly aligned with his personal passions. The demands of maintaining his television appearance required cycles of strict dieting and intense exercise. His weight fluctuated considerably, and by the later seasons of Bonanza, he required padding to maintain Haas's familiar larger-than-life appearance. These physical challenges, while manageable, hinted at underlying health vulnerabilities that would prove significant in years to come. In May 1972, Dan Blocker underwent what should have been a routine gallbladder surgery. The procedure appeared successful initially, but complications arose. A pulmonary embolism, a blood clot in the lungs, proved fatal. On May 13, 1972, at the age of 43, the world lost a man whose impact on American television and culture would be felt for decades. The news sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry and devastated millions of fans worldwide. Tributes poured in honoring not just his talent, but his character. The cast of Bonanza struggled to comprehend the loss of their friend and colleague. Michael Landon, tasked with writing the first episode after Dan's death, chose a subtle approach, letting Haas's absence be felt through silence and unspoken grief rather than explicit explanation. In his 60s, Dirk Blocker, Dan's son, came forward to discuss his father's life and legacy with an honesty that moved audiences anew. Growing up as the son of Haas Cartwright was both a privilege and a burden. Dirk reflected on how witnessing his father's inability to move through the world without public recognition steered him toward a different path. Rather than pursue stardom, he chose character acting roles that allowed him to work without the relentless spotlight. Dirk's confession centered on a truth that had been long suspected, that Dan Blocker, for all his accomplishments and the joy he brought to millions, had been deeply ambivalent about fame. He had wanted simply to practice his craft, to tell stories, and to live his life with his family. The price of being Haas Cartwright, the inability to move through the world unrecognized, the constant demands on his time and attention, had been higher than many realized. Dan Blocker's legacy transcends television. He was a man of principle who used his considerable talents and presence to advocate for justice, to bring authentic warmth to the screen, and to demonstrate that true strength lies not in domination, but in protection and compassion. His untimely death at 43 robbed the world of a figure who had much more to offer. Yet in the decades since, his work remains a testament to what can be achieved when an actor brings not just skill, but genuine character to their roles. He remains, truly and profoundly, one of television's greatest icons.